people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this, set to go down late next month on the 31st on the undercard of Adam Azim versus Gustavo Lemos. Young Francesca Hennessy will be returning to action in a final eliminator for what is the WBC title in the bantamweight division against an unbeaten fighter like herself in Ellie Bouttell, born out of the United Kingdom but residing in China.
Roughly the same amount of fights as Francesca, sporting a professional record of 7 wins with no losses and 1 draw. 2 knockouts to Francesca, who sports a professional record of 7 wins with no losses and no draws.
1 knockout. Ellie Bouttell is 8 years Francesca Hennessy's senior, a bit more world-traveled, being based out of China and fighting local girls out there from around the way. Seems a decent enough acid test for an unbeaten fighter like Francesca to make her bones in the paid ranks. So what I don't like about this fight is that it's a WBC final eliminator. Every step that a fighter takes in the bantamweight division is a step towards Sheeraz Johnson.
She's got all the alphabet titles. She was just in action this past Friday on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua, and you saw what she did to Amanda Gaye, an unbeaten fighter.
Like Francesca is an unbeaten fighter, last in action in November of this year opposite the ring former champion Fabiana Bouttell, who she decisioned over 10 rounds, and before that she was in action in March opposite the ring seasoned journeywoman Gemma Rueg, the young daughter of veteran promoter Mick Hennessy. Boxing is a family business. Boxing is in the blood of Francesca, though careful that she's not putting the cart before the horse, fighting in eliminators much sooner than she needs to at 21.
She don't need to be targeting world titles just yet. It feels like they're rushing her into a situation that she's not ready for. That's irrespective of what happens with Ellie Bouttell. Francesca probably beats her, but beating Ellie doesn't mean that she's ready for somebody like Sheeraz.
It seems that Francesca Hennessy is all that remains of what was the boxer stable of Valkyries. I think the only female fighters left over there are Francesca and maybe Lauren Price. Maybe.
I don't know. She might jump ship. Carolyn Dubois just did. Savannah Marshall.
My honest opinion is young Francesca Hennessy should steer clear of fighting for an alphabet title in the near future. I'm talking about for at least the next 2 to 3 fights, because any chance that you bump into either Sheeraz Johnson or former champion Dina Thorsland,
you're in trouble.
And it's not just them that Francesca has to worry about. The bantamweight division is one of the deeper divisions with one of the deeper talent pools. There are lots of contenders at that weight that Francesca might bump into that might prove too much for her. She's only 21. She doesn't need to be in a rush to fight for a title.
At only 7-0, 21 years old?
We're going to see how she makes out with Ellie Bouttell, and we're going to give Ellie a closer look as the fight date approaches. But preliminary thoughts, I don't think Francesca should be fighting in eliminators so soon. It's a needless risk.
It's too early.
And now for another installment of what is fast becoming the most popular segment here on the channel, Ring IQ Hate Mail.
Guy who goes by the name Alfred, the boxing guru, didn't take kindly to my evaluation of Oscar De La Hoya's legacy versus Terence Crawford's legacy, based on some shots that Oscar took at Terence after learning that he had retired.
I was less than gracious when evaluating Oscar De La Hoya's body of work and overall career, him throwing stones in a glass house, and to that, Mr. Boxing Guru said, "Damn fool, you have a personal beef with Golden Boy."
No, I don't. You have a personal stake in Oscar because you share a common ancestry.
You sound like Glacier anyways, hating on Matchroom. This whole year, you sound like you're working for Matchroom. Guess what? You are.
I wish.
I was a fan, but what I've been hearing is you're accepting payouts to hate. sellout.
Buddy, I wish that Eddie Hearn was cutting me a check to say what I've been saying about Golden Boy Promotions. Unfortunately for you, I've been doing that all on my own.
Alfred continued, Oscar is a 6-weight world champion. You didn't mention robbed of wins over Trinidad and Mosley.
Yes, I did. I said that there are people out there that'll tell you Oscar really won the Trinidad fight, though ultimately that's not how it was scored. And where you have to keep making those excuses for Oscar years after he retired, I don't have to make those excuses for Terrence. Or did you forget that that's what this is about? Oscar's body of work versus Terrence's.
Alfred continued, Oscar fought prime opponents younger than him.
Buddy, did you not realize that Errol is younger than Terrence and that Canelo is younger than Terrence? While you're patting Oscar on the back for fighting guys that were younger than he was, how many of those younger guys did he beat? Because he didn't beat Manny, he didn't beat Floyd.
He didn't beat Felix. Not on paper.
I don't care about how you scored it or who you think really won. You have to still argue about that fight all these years later, because in the end, Oscar didn't get the job done. Oscar was not the caliber of fighter then that Terrence Crawford is now, and that's why you have to keep arguing about that shit.
Alfred continued, Oscar is a successful American promoter, promoted fighters like Manny, Floyd, and 15 Hall of Famers. You're dumb.
He proceeded to post 2 Mexican flags, highlighting what his real stake in this is, that he shares a common ancestry with Oscar, and he doesn't like me talking him down. Except I'm not talking him down. I'm telling the truth. Most of Oscar's big fights, if not all of them, were fights that he lost. He gets a lot of credit for fighting the good fighters of his era, but he beats so few of them.
So what the fuck do you think, Alfred? That I'm supposed to go easy on him because you and him share a common ancestry? I don't give a fuck.
I don't care.
You want to talk about how he was robbed in the Trinidad fight or the Mosley fight, but he robbed Felix Sturm. He robbed Ike Quartey. He robbed Sweet Pea to a lot of people while we're on the subject of robberies.
Factor that into your equation, why don't you?
You won't, because your entire motivation for going up to bat for Oscar isn't really his boxing record or his career accolades. It's that he shares a common ancestry with you, as if I'm supposed to give a shit.
Well, I don't.
And that's the problem that I have with any and every tribalist that is a tribalist, irrespective of who their tribe is. They all act like their shit don't stink. I mean, you know without a doubt that it's tribalism because he's posting flag emojis in the comments. So that's what his motivation is. That's his axe to grind, but I don't give a fuck. I'm not gonna pull punches on your tribe any sooner than I would on somebody else's. Oscar doesn't stop being a cross-dressing hypocrite because you share a common ancestry with him.
He doesn't stop being a fucking jackass because you share a common ancestry with him. And if I've been critical of Golden Boy Promotions all year, it's for good reason. It's because their fighter, Floyd Schofield, backed out of a fight with Ashton Silva, then again with Shakur Stevenson, now he's ducking Abdullah Mason. Am I not supposed to highlight that? Because you and Oscar share a common ancestry.
Am I not supposed to talk about how Zerto is ducking Jai Opataya with David Benavidez, which I called a year in advance? You don't want me to talk about that either.
Because you share a common ancestry with Oscar.
I'm not supposed to talk about how his biggest acquisition, Canelo Alvarez, left him, and how the other wants to do the same thing.
Because you share a common ancestry with Oscar.
For how many years now has Ryan Garcia been vocal about wanting to leave Golden Boy Promotions, and you think I'm the bad guy for pointing that out?
You don't want me to talk about how Virgil Ortiz is pricing himself out of a Boots Ennis fight, or how there's a nasty rumor out there that Golden Boy Promotions may get the boot next summer because DAZN isn't happy with them. I'm not supposed to talk about any of this because you and Oscar share a common ancestry.
My hairy fucking ass. It's not unbiased observations you're looking for, it's partiality. You think that if I talk about anybody from your tribe, I'm supposed to play nice, I'm supposed to pull punches. Sorry, S.A., but this ain't that kind of party.
Muchas gracias, por favor.
Give a fuck what flag you fly or what flag Oscar flies. In a thong?
In a Speedo off the coke?
Off the rip, I've made it crystal clear for years now. I'm not for anybody's tribalism, yours or someone else's. Got a lot of fucking nerve thinking I'm gonna hold off on highlighting Oscar's failures or Golden Boy's because you share a common ancestry with him? So fucking what?
I'm not some new blood who heard about Oscar de la Hoya via digital media. I was there.
It was well established in Oscar's time that he was a high-profile choke artist who often choked in his biggest fights, whether it was the Trinidad fight, the Hopkins fight, the Mayweather fight, the Manny Pacquiao fight,
Mosley fights, and that's not even including the gifts that he got, because he got gifts.
So when this is the same guy who wants to all of a sudden take shots at Terence Crawford unprovoked, that opens the door for me and many others to take shots at him.
The difference between Oscar and Terence: when Oscar tried to become a middleweight champion, he got folded up like a lawn chair.
Terence jumps up 2 weight classes to try and become an undisputed super middleweight champion, and he gets the job done. So I'm not gonna pretend that they're of the same ilk because you share a common ancestry with Oscar. So fucking what?
Who cares?
In men's super middleweight news, the WBO has ordered a fight between Hamza Sheeraz and Diego Pacheco for the vacant title. The WBO is ready to crown a new super middleweight champion. The sanctioning body has officially ordered Hamza Sheeraz and Diego Pacheco, its second and third ranked contenders, to fight for their vacant title. The winner of their proposed matchup will fill the hole recently left behind by Terence Crawford. Earlier this month, the future first ballot Hall of Famer announced his retirement just 3 months after becoming the first male fighter to become an undisputed champion across 3 weight divisions in the 4-belt era after his 12-round points win over Canelo Alvarez. It was initially thought that Terence might either run it back with Canelo or maybe move down to middleweight. Not the case.
I think this is what's best for the super middleweight division. I see no need for Terence Crawford to linger, to stick around and bottleneck all the talent to himself, knowing that he's not just gonna fight mandatory challenger after mandatory challenger.
But the longer he hung on to all those alphabet titles, he was gonna have to. Otherwise, you're log jamming the division.
Make a decision, make up your mind. And so he did.
The Ring's number 8 rated super middleweight Sheeraz experienced an up-and-down 2025 campaign. The British contender fought for his maiden world title against WBC champion Carlos Adames on February 22nd, but was forced to settle for a split draw after a sluggish second half. One many felt he was fortunate not to lose. Rather than continue boiling down to 160, he confirmed he'd be moving up and looked like a new man 4 months later, easily stopping Edgar Berlanga with a 5th-round knockout win on July 12th during the Ring 3 headliner in New York. The Ring's number 5 rated Pacheco, meanwhile, went 3-0 this year with a trio of decision wins over contenders Steven Nelson, Trevor McCumbee, and more recently recovering from a career-first knockdown to outpoint Kevin Lele Saggio on December 13th. Previously, both men have expressed a willingness and intrigue towards fighting one another in the future, and that may come into fruition next year after this latest update. The thing is that this is not Hamza's only path to an alphabet title. Before we got here, the World Boxing Council ordered a fight between him and Christian Mabili. So what path is Hamza going to choose?
Whichever one gets him to a title the easiest. Let's be honest. Nobody wants a hard night at the office. So what fight makes for an easier night for Hamza? And in that regard, I think Hamza would go with Diego before he goes with Christian. Not just because Diego looked vulnerable in his last fight, but also because Turki El Sheikh expressed an interest in paying for this fight for one of his shows next year. He may be able to get more money fighting Diego than fighting Christian.
The interesting component in association with all of this is that if Hamza decides to forego the WBC's order for the WBOs and he fights Diego Pacheco instead, that would leave Christian Mabili without a dance partner, and the World Boxing Council might have to order another fight. It just so happens that the former undisputed champion himself, Canelo Alvarez, is currently ranked at number 1. And we all know that they'd like more than anything to put a title back in his hands. That would give them the opportunity to do that. Christian is the interim champion. Canelo is ranked at number 1. If Hamza withdraws,
There's your opportunity.
that's the story happening in the background of everything at 168. That Canelo Alvarez has not retired and he means to fight on. So any one of these guys floating around that picks up an alphabet title automatically becomes a potential opponent for Canelo upon his return.
That's Christian Mabili. To a lesser extent, that is the winner of Sheeraz versus Pacheco, if that's the way it happens.
What else might influence Hamza Sheeraz? To forego the fight with Christian Mabili in favor of the fight with Diego Pacheco is the stylistic matchup. Christian Mabili makes for a hard night at the office.
Harder than Diego.
In Christian Mabili, what you have is a shorter fighter, shorter than Hamza, with a lower center of gravity, bobbing and weaving and barreling forward, looking to crash the pocket and put punches together. Not dissimilar from what Carlos Adames did when he fought Hamza, and he did that with some success, to where if Christian does it at a higher weight, he might have even more success.
It's what makes a taller fighter uncomfortable when a smaller fighter crowds them, because at that proximity, the smaller fighter's got the edge. He can put punches together faster since his arms are shorter. The taller guy needs more room to work, and the shorter guy won't give it to him.
Christian Mabili stylistically may be a more difficult fight for Hamza Sheeraz, whereas with Diego, he's not as aggressive, he makes for a bigger target.
Fights at a slower pace. What you can expect from Diego and Hamza, if they do fight, is two guys fighting for real estate, fencing with their jabs, and being careful about it.
I don't see a shootout between those two guys. I believe that they will respect each other's power. I feel that even though Hamza's the one who moved up from 160 up to 168, I think he punches harder than Diego.
I might have to give Hamza Sheeraz the edge in power. He's the one coming off a highlight reel knockout win, after all, whereas Diego, he hasn't knocked anybody out in a while.
I think there is a marginal difference in power in favor of Hamza Sheeraz, though ultimately, I think that if either guy gets in clean, they can hurt the other. That yes, Hamza can hurt Diego, but Diego can also hurt Hamza.
Even if Hamza punches a little harder, I'm not convinced that he can really hold a shot, a clean one.
Hamza might be more keen to take this fight due to the perceived vulnerability of Diego Pacheco, who was floored by a very modest-sized Kevin Lele Sajo, that if Kevin can knock him down, I can knock him down.
That's what he tells himself.
And for the money that Turkey LL Sheik may kick out to make this fight happen on one of his shows, I believe that this is the direction that Hamza will go in what will be another Queensbury versus Matchroom fight.
Hamza's with Queensbury. Diego is with Matchroom.
He's been with Matchroom for a while, and it's now time for Diego to make good on their investment. They're stepping him up, and he has to deliver.
So how do you guys see it? And who do you guys like in this fight? Do you think that Hamza beats Diego, or does it happen the other way?